channel.
Hey, you know what time it is, No Press fam? Welcome everyone to another episode of The Beatdown, the segment and channel where two worlds collide. I am your host, Class. And on today's episode, we are going to do a second round to Bryan Mills from Taken and Robert McCall from The Equalizer. But this time we're doing the sequel, which means that it has to be part 2 of the movie. So here are the rules on this one. So we're only going to be talking about The Equalizer 2's feats, and we're going to be only talking about Taken 2's feats. So we're only going to be talking about those feats in order to make our argument on this episode. It's not going to be the same as the other one. So there might be some similarities, or there might be some new ones. So let's just keep that in mind. And as always, guys, if you guys enjoy our content, you know what you guys can do. You can share, you can like, or you can subscribe to our channel. When you guys subscribe to our channel, you know what you do. You guys are building our empire and allowing us to provide you guys with even much more greater content for you guys to enjoy. That being said, I'm going to start things off by representing Robert McCall's, aka The Equalizer. Alright, so let's get into the brief origin story of the sequel of The Equalizer. Robert found a quiet, diverse neighborhood and took the interest of an Indian woman's garden and an African American young man having trouble finding his way in the world. One day, a dear old friend of his pays a visit and honors his wife who has passed. Not too long after, he finds out his friend was murdered on an assignment and makes it his mission to find who was involved and to make them pay with blood. He discovers it was people from his old platoon and goes to work of his brand of justice. Alright, now let's get into Bath, shall we? Alright, so let's talk about the feats. I can, they're not exactly named by the exact title of the scene, but I just named them myself, so bear with me, folks. The train scene. Okay, defeated 4 guys using a teapot, hot water, teaspoon, glass cup, and he manages to get one of them to stab themselves and snap his neck before he did the unspeakable thing to the last main guy. Yeah. Rich Butthole's apartment. Sliced one guy's forehead with his own expensive credit card, dislocated one man's arm, dislocated another man's arm and neck, and Mike Tyson the crap out of one till he fell down to the ground, and bounced the head off the glass table with another guy. The last guy he left standing, he didn't leave without a souvenir. To remind the butt licker what he did, he had the guy say the woman's name he harmed while snapping his left hand's fingers apart from each other. Notice his apartment. This is interesting. His apartment. Notice his apartment had an unexpected visitor and knew how to scope out the area before entering the apartment, and immediately puts his defenses down when he notices a familiar perfume smell. Able to notice small details like his friend who got murdered never pressed the elevator button to her level, and the murderers did. He can tell a murder scene cover-up just by examining a room and how certain things were positioned, noticing again details like how someone's wife was shot by a left-handed one when it was supposedly a right-hand shooter, and which in the case was supposed to be her husband. Okay, now this is another area. Gang's house. Took the front door guard down with a blow to the neck and one clean punch, and took his gun. Another by bashing his head onto a wall pavement. Another by pistol bashing and tossing him into the elevator. To finish off his madness, he barges into a room filled with gangs strapped with pointed guns all over their faces, just to get a kid like Miles out of the place. Now another area, passenger. He picks up a passenger and immediately knows he's an assassin because he wasn't concerned of his location. The man was behind him, and he still managed to fight off the blade from the guy's hand while maneuvering the vehicle. Finished the man off with his own gun while spinning the car in all types of directions. The 5 remaining former colleagues of his, he showed no mercy. Him and his wife's beach house. This is the location. Okay. Bad weather usually doesn't favor anyone, but it did Robert. He used plenty of it to avoid being sniped or seen. Harpooned one guy to death with a harpoon gun. Yeah. Diced a man to death, cutting up certain parts of his body to finish him. Last guy he blows up using bags of flour, several fans, and sparks was the man tossing his own flash grenade. Last guy had a sniper distance on him, and he got to his face and finished him one-on-one using a blade to sever his tendons in his body, and a devastating blow to his lungs, along with cutting the back of his neck to bleed him out. Yeah, Robert's a savage. Alright, so let's talk about the endgame, how Robert would beat Bryan in this fight. So, it's safe to say that Robert's skills has gotten way better throughout the entire franchise, including this one. He just continues to show how incredibly fast he can be, and not even needing a weapon, just physically being quick enough to react to things and come up with things in a matter of moments. Under 20 something seconds, if you remember correctly. Even in that train scene, he does the same damn thing under 30 seconds. He gives you he's a pretty precise guy. So I will give you credit where credit's due. Robert has speed. He has that in the bag for sure. He probably most likely will be able to react faster than Bryan. Bryan does have some very special skills and techniques, but if you remember in the sequel, if you guys remember the sequel, some people don't watch it again. It was here and there about the sequel, but anyways, regardless. In the sequel, Bryan wasn't really capable of taking out officially the second to last guy, completely with ease. You know, it actually took a challenge for him. It actually took a lot out of him to fight this guy. It was only because of sheer luck that he managed to break the spine of his neck as he fell. That's it. Like, other than that, Bryan, if he kept going with this guy probably would have taken him to school. Even without the blade in his hand or being removed, he was still kind of taking Bryan to school. So Robert's speed does come in handy. On top of that, Robert in a fight, if you've seen him in the whole film, I don't think I've seen anyone lay a punch on him. So there is the slight possibility that Robert's going to be able to fast and with a much more skill be able to put down Bryan in this sort of way. Another couple arguments I'll make is that Robert is much more deadlier with a weapon, with any object in his hand compared to Bryan. Even in this film, he was capable of using a card and certain parts of some penthouse rich person's area to come up with ways to put somebody down. It's safe to say that Robert without a gun could do more damage than Bryan without a gun. So we're clear on that end. Another thing is to remember is that Robert very observant. So he's going to know there's a few things, except for example, if you've seen the sequel, Bryan has a limp now. In the first film, he fell. I'm guessing it's related to that scene where he falls into the boat and then he manages to land and hurts his leg pretty badly. I'm figuring they continued keeping the character's weakness on that, so which means Robert could take advantage of that. If you remember correctly, Robert had taken a few people out using certain parts of the body to cut them up and everything like that using a blade. I want to say that Robert would be able to see the opportunity of Bryan's leg and take advantage of it if he wanted to, or he could find certain pressure points or certain exposures that he can use to dislocate Bryan's arm or maybe cut open a limb or something like that. It is a possibility because Robert is fast and he does have a quick reaction time. Plus, he would, if he's fighting a very similar skilled character, he might want to slow him down some way, and this would be the best way to do it. Now, if he gets all those cuts in or dislocates Bryan, it would take Bryan time to recover or have to get back on his feet. And those moments that he needs, those seconds, remember, doesn't take Robert that long to take someone out. With Bryan, it takes some time. But with Robert, it only takes a matter of seconds. Any open opportunity, any windows of opportunity shots, Robert McCall is going to take it, and when he does, he's going to claim that W and win this one. Alright, and I'll be representing on this end Bryan Mills, Taken 2. Alright, so let's get into the brief origin story of Taken 2.
While saving his daughter in the first movie, he brutally murdered the man who kidnapped her, and that resulted in a chain of events. After taking out that man, the father of the kidnapper wanted revenge for the death of his son, and planned an evil plot to get exactly that. The father takes his ex-wife as a hostage until he gives him exactly what he wants, which happens to be Bryan himself. But little does this bad guy know that he was going to get exactly what he wanted. But be careful what you wish for.
Alright, now let's get into the bath, shall we? He maneuvers around in foot traffic in Istanbul while being chased. To add to that, he was being shot at in Istanbul's alley. One guy trying to throw a swing missed a bunch and then got one mean punch himself that actually knocked him out by Bryan. Another guy, he managed to move the gun away from his face before he could pull the trigger, took it off of his hands using another guy's swinging baton who did it on accident, but Bryan intended to do that, takes him out at some point with that baton. The guy who shows up out of nowhere with the baton gets hit in the face with it as well, thanks to Bryan forcing it on himself. Takes this guy also at some point gaining the baton. Takes two guys out who both were holding batons too, and beats them with his own obtained baton. He then has to surrender for his ex-wife, which he gets. Bear with me on this one, folks. He surrenders so he can save his ex-wife for the time being and himself, and when he does, he gets his butt kicked by three men while they were using batons on him before they tie him up. Now, this is certain locations and certain scenes, but it's not exactly from the film, but like this is just made up titles that I made up. In the van, while him and his wife were taken, he has a bag over his head. This doesn't discourage him at all. As he uses everything he can hear, like his watch and the church singing, to detect where he was, or it's kind of like a sort of crumb trail, cuffed to a pipe. He woke up, took out a leg out of his device that calls for emergencies. He managed to pinpoint his location based on his memory of sounds and where he was abducted, with the help of his daughter, of course. Had her use a grenade to figure out his exact whereabouts. He then gets her to help him in his escape by going to his location. To escape, he used the side of a structure sharp enough for him to cut himself free. He gets his hand on a gun thanks to his daughter, Kim, and in seconds loads it just before two guys walk into a room and discovers what's going on. The guard's TV sports room. Walks in, catching one of them almost leaving while placing a gun onto the man's temple. Takes the guy out straight, hard to the chest shot, and then fights off the other two guys. One guy tries to hit him with a bottle, but no dice. He takes him out with a gunshot, and last guy he shot before he could get to his gun. Rooftop. This is a scene. Kim was being chased and was on her knees about to meet her maker until dear old dad arrived and took the guy out from behind with a clean shot. Back to the scene of the crime. Shot an officer before he could shoot him. On a muscle memory alone, he was able to track the bad guy's hideout. He starts with the guy at the front finding loose chains and wrapping it around the guy's neck before he could see it coming. Lights out. Another guy with a behind sneak attack, nailing him with a butt of his gun with a throat punch and then holding his mouth closed until he was no more. Walked into another room, shot a man directly in the chest with a machine gun. And the second guy chilling and realizing this until it was too late. Yeah, he got shot too. The last guy, he was gunned down before he could do the same. Up the stairs, gets bullets flying on him, and he takes the time to get one clean shot on the one guy. Walking up, he is met in a hallway filled with bullets flying as a trap, and once they were done, he waited for one of them to peek into the hole to shoot right through that guy's eyeballs, and then the second one waited until he let his guard down and peeked his head out of the hallway, and bam, took him out then. Down the hallway, he is met with a surprise gun almost shot to the face, but manages to disarm the man and take him out, saving Lenny. That's Lenore, I'm guessing. This ex-wife's name, his little cute pet name for her, or her little nickname, I don't know. While trying to rescue his wife, he is fast with an opponent. He's met with an opponent who's fast and actually gives him a run for his money in a hand-to-hand combat. But at the end, Bryan bests him with a hard backwards drop to the spine, then snapping his neck for safe measure. Did the last guy by giving him a choice, and when he chose wrong, he rammed his head to a spike. Alright, so let's talk about the end game, how Bryan Mills would defeat Robert McCall. So, Bryan, obviously, there are two arguments I'm going to make for it because the easiest ones, which is his skills with the baton. Having a baton in your hand with a skilled fighter, Robert would be in some sort of trouble. Considering Bryan is no small potatoes, he's no amateur, he's got experience too, which means he might be able to do some real damage with that baton if Robert doesn't see it coming or doesn't have the quick reaction time he could for it. Another thing is that Robert is obviously still favored in this car chase situation in this film. Yes, you're thinking, well, that's not true because Robert was able to defeat some guy in a cab, in his own cab. That's true, but Bryan still was able to sneak around and maneuver around these like bad guys who are trying to come after him. If you see one scene, he goes into like an alley and he times it perfectly. There's like this big huge sack of stuff coming in a big huge bag that's covering up the hallway, the alley where he's at. He waits for a moment and then the bad guys fly right past him because they don't see towards over the bag, and then he just drives on out. Like, so he is clever and he's much more capable in skills to maneuver around in the car. So I do believe he could give Robert a run for his money if both of them started getting into a chase with a vehicle. And now another thing I'll add is that I gotta say that Bryan has a tad more experience when it comes to really getting into specific details on how to get around. Now you're probably thinking, well, Robert's very close to detail too, but he's close to detail when it comes to like someone coming at him and seeing him in person and getting all that in a moment. But with Bryan, he's kind of like, I'll walk around and I'll start getting ideas right on the top of my head out of nowhere. I do believe his reaction time when it comes to maneuvering around or probably giving a goose chase to Robert is a possibility. He could get Robert to chase him. And I do think that at some point Robert wouldn't be able to see Bryan coming. Bryan might be able to get the drop on Robert, considering Bryan has been able to find a way to be very crafty when it comes to being familiar with sound memories and all that stuff. So I do believe if he's able to be that clever, he might be able to cleverly figure a way around Robert and then get the drop on him and get him from behind with a weapon, because that is Bryan's whole thing. And then one of the other valid points I'll make is that Bryan has skills, but he's a great hand-to-hand skill fighter. But two of the things that Bryan is really known for in almost franchises, he's an excellent, or few of things, is he's an excellent driver. He's good at hand-to-hand combat, and he's a savage person with a gun. So his biggest defense will be, and his biggest offense will be the pistol. As long as he has a gun in his hand, he's more likely to be able to put a bullet between Robert's eyes compared to Robert. Robert usually comes up with other strategies before he needs to rely on a pistol. But with Bryan just completely relies on a pistol and range. A pistol comes with everything. It's got range, it's got quick speed, it's got all kinds of things. And also you don't need to only use one bullet to get that one good punch. It still keeps going a couple rounds. So him and a gun is going to be his best friend during this fight against someone like Robert, which could give Bryan the opportunity to claim victory on this one. And as always, no press fam, it is not up to me. It's up to you guys. So if you guys liked either one of my arguments, you can either hashtag Bryan Mills, or you can hashtag Taken2, or you can hashtag Robert McCall, or you can hashtag equalizer, the equalizer too. And as always, No Purse fam, we really appreciate you guys keeping it 300 subs. Peace.